My name is Evan Meyer, and you're listening to the Undomesticate Podcast, a show where we explore how to deprogram domestication, restore the health of our body, mind, and spirit, and return to our sovereign roots.
Cool, man. Well, Josh Tyler, man, it's great to have you on the Undomesticate podcast. We've been working out. We've been catching up. We're getting to know each other at least. We only connected maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago through Instagram. And I was coming through this part of the country, actually moving out here to the East. And I've been following you for a number of years. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea.
No, I know. It's been terrible, actually. I unfollowed you a number of times over the course of the years. And then finally I said, well, I'm running out of guests and I got to get some, start scraping the bottom of the barrel. You know what I mean?
I don't care what they call me. As long as they
totally.
call me, right?
No, but it's been cool, man, this morning, just coming out here and coming to your beautiful place. And of course, anyone watching this, you'll see we're sitting in your barn here. On your property, and we did a little workout this morning, which I didn't come prepared to do, but had a great time doing. And maybe we can start off talking a little bit about that, because I like the conversation we were having about that. And for, again, anyone watching this, we'll probably have some B-roll footage as well in here, just of the workout. But essentially, it was rounds of kettlebell swings mixed with shooting the recurve bow. And maybe explain a little bit about that, and then kind of what we were talking about in terms of this piece around brotherhood and building trust.
Yeah. So I think it's difficult in this world where we have this technology that allows us to connect to anyone, anywhere, right? And so it gives this false pretense of connection that isn't really true. It's like, well, we've never met in person, right? And I think the fact that you were willing to drive all the way out here is a pretty strong indicator of who you are. Like, all right, man, this guy's pretty committed, right? So that's a tell right there. But I think as men, we need to have an idea of who we're interfacing with if we're going to build trust and have a real relationship. And I think if you're going to have an honest and impactful conversation, that trust needs to be there. And so, yeah, we can follow each other online, and I can get an idea of your character by listening to you speak and seeing the things that you do from afar. But I don't think there's no substitute for a real life experience. And I don't think there's any substitute for real world effort. And I think you can tell everything you pretty much need to know about someone through their effort and their willingness to do something and ability to do something. And I think men's relationship is built off of that understanding of capability, where if I'm going to trust you, I have to know what you're capable of. You can tell me anything in the world. Yeah, I'm super fit. I work out. I do this. I can't take that at face value. It's an evolutionary fail-safe that if a random dude walks into our tribe, hey guys, I'm your friend. I'm here to help. Oh, sure, come on in, right? If you don't vet that guy, your bloodline ends potentially, right? And so I think just somewhere in our DNA, like we have this natural aversion to letting guys in. It's a safety precaution, and I think it's important. And so we have to find a way to work through that. So typically that was done by men hunting together, by working together. We build a shelter, a communal space or whatever. All right, man, I know this guy. Man, he freaking took down a tree by himself. He carried it over. All right. He is who he says he is. I can trust him. We can accept him into the tribe without fear of him being a liability. And we don't have those opportunities, I think, in everyday life. So I think sometimes it's important to artificially create those, hence the workout. And I didn't have any, preconceived notion. I pitched it to you. It was very like, hey, no strings attached, like no expectation here. And I went into it with the mentality of I can spin this for the positive either way. No matter what you say, it's going to reflect positively on you. I can either say, man, what a badass dude to drive, 6 hours from North Carolina up here first thing in the morning to come just shoot the shit with me. And do a workout that's kind of heinous, Or if you didn't, my option would be like, man, what an incredibly intelligent, in tune individual to be smart enough to recognize, no, you idiot. I'm going to have to drive 6 hours back. I'm not going to do some ridiculous workout just because you wanted to do something hard to see if I was a tough guy or not. Like, fuck you. I don't have nothing to prove. And I'll be like, man, that's respectable. This guy's pretty solid. So it was a win-win. And I think positioning it that way allowed for a very honest, you tell me, a very honest response.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. It was a win-win for me either way, because I feel comfortable enough, at least where I'm at, and just with my own masculinity, I guess you could put it, or just as a human. It doesn't even have to be, about being a man or anything like that, but just that I could do the workout and I could give it my best effort, and that endears or commands respect anyway. Even be like, holy fuck, dude, you're kicking my ass. I could be out of shape and all this kind of stuff. I could hang a little bit. I'm not a professional athlete or former professional athlete. So I was a little intimidated. I won't lie. I'm like, oh fuck. Okay. Yeah. I'll work out. I'll give my best effort. Like fucking throwing the axe. You know what I mean? Like, cool. I'll just keep doing this. And if we had the time, I would have gone all day until I got it. Cause that's just who I am. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm not going to stop until I can do this.
And that is the marker. I think that is the thing that people should be looking for. I don't give a shit how fit you are. It means nothing to me how many kettlebell swings you can do, how well you can shoot an arrow, throw an axe. Like I'm not necessarily looking for performative skills. What resonates with me is effort and willingness to suffer for the greater good, right? And the workout that we did kind of had that element. That's why I designed it that way, in this idea of like, it is performative based. So the idea of the workout was we had just to get the blood flowing, and hindsight, I probably should have had us both go through a little bit more of a warm up, but
I feel good. I'm good.
Yeah. Well,
so far,
you feel good now.
For now, we'll see how my back is in
when your
4 or 5
ass
hours.
is completely on fire driving. You're going to be like, that Josh Tyler. So we probably, in hindsight, and sometimes you got to learn lessons the hard way, but we should have warmed up. But we started with a 50 kettlebell goblet squat buy-in. So we each did those, get the heart pumping a little bit. And then we threw the axe to determine.
You threw the axe.
I threw the axe.
I threw the axe. It just didn't go anywhere, but
it didn't hit. It didn't stay in the target. Yeah. You hit the target.
I hit the target.
And to be fair, I really don't want to get hit with any part of the axe. So, it looks a lot cooler when it jabs into the thing, but in terms of effectiveness, you hit it, that's still going to suck. That's a shitty day. Whether you hit me with the handle, the sharp part, or the ass end of it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that was to determine who gets to be first shooter. So then I don't know, it was probably about 10, 15 yards. We were set up, nothing too crazy because I'm not that great of an archer, and we're using a recurve bow. And so we take a shot, and then based off of where that shot placement was, then that dictated how many kettlebell swings our partner did.
The other person had
to
do.
The other person did, which means now, people will, and this is part of the test, right? Like I pretty well, I'm fairly certain, it's hard. I'm fairly certain in most people's ability to like work hard for themselves and try for themselves so that they don't have to suffer. What I'm curious is how hard are you going to try to not let me suffer? That's what I'm interested in.
And the concept was, just for anyone listening, is like the better that I shot the arrow, the more on target I shot the arrow, the less swings he had to do. So I wanted to do as well as possible to ease the burden on him. But if he were to miss and I had to do 40 kettlebell swings and then shoot the arrow when my heart's pumping and everything like that, I have to like double down on my concentration and my focus, even though he kind of just fucked me inconsequentially. Like he didn't mean to, but he might have missed the target. And so now I have to do more swings, but I don't want to fuck him anyway, even though I just had to suffer a bit more. And how it ended up being, because you've shot a recurve bow a few more times than I have, is that you ended up doing 40 kettlebell swings for most of the time, and I did 10 to 20. But you were happy to suffer for me, and I was deeply apologetic, and my Canadian was showing. And
it was super Canadian. But the idea though is on the surface, okay, I shot poorly. Sucks to suck. But by the design of the workout, that ultimately works against you because now I'm going to be more fatigued and less likely to hit a good shot, which is then going to reflect back on you. And I think that this is it makes an interesting mirror for how we operate
a great
in
practice,
society, right? Where, and I even found myself within that little exercise, it forced me to pay attention to what I was like. Normally I'll come out here and there's no states, there's no skin in the game. It's like, I'm just going to, I'll shoot 20 arrows and just see how I do. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but there's nothing on the line. It has no effect on my day whatsoever. Right. But, and so I don't pay as much attention. There's no stakes. Right.
Yeah.
Now, when I've got another guy who I've never, I haven't met before, he's a guest in my house. I really don't want to dick him over that bad and have him, cursing my name for the rest of eternity. All right. So now I have something that I'm shooting for. There's some intention there, and it forced me to really hone in what I was doing and care. And that was the whole purpose of it, really, was just to do that. And I don't think we typically approach our fitness and exercise in that way. It's mostly just, I'm going to show up in the gym and I'm going to do some stuff. And, I checked the box. I went to the gym today. And sometimes that's all you can do. And that's great. But we fall into this trap where we do that with everything. Not only is it the workout that we're doing, but becomes our marriage. It becomes the job in our career, where we just kind of phone it in and we go through the motions on everything, and there's zero intentionality. So what I have found that as much as I can, I try to put, intentionality in everything. You know what I mean? Whether I'm building a birdhouse, out of materials that I just salvaged from the woods with my daughter, or I'm inviting someone over and we're putting a workout together. Like, I spent you even said, you're like, man, you put a lot of thought into this. I'm like, yeah, I did.
You're explaining it to me and I was like, I got most of it, but I'm just going to go with it. You know what I mean? Because it feels like you really have this, you really lit up about this idea and this like kind of philosophy around it, which I loved. And it was awesome. I want to speak to one thing around that, about this piece about skin in the game, because I need that. And I recognize, and I've told this story, I don't know if I've told on this podcast, but anyone that's been following my work has heard this before. So in my early 20s, I went and I studied at college, and I came out with a business degree, and I went and worked in an office. And within like 9 months, I was like, I fucking hate my life. Like I couldn't do it, dude. And good pay, lots of time, like all the shit that you could want as a 22, 23-year-old. Right. But I just fucking hated it because literally, like, I'm not even exaggerating. My job was essentially fucking like getting paper jams out of the printer. I was like bottom of the barrel, like production managers is what they called me, or production manager assistant. But essentially I was just a glorified copy and printer and stuff like that. And, just hated it. Right. And what I did, my rational decision to get out of that situation was I packed my car up and I drove, a couple 2,000-3,000 miles out to Alberta, Canada. And I went and worked on the rigs, and I had never done anything like that. Right. But I was like, I just need to do something that's like going to use my body, gonna, get me out of my head, like stop sitting in a chair all day, do some hard shit. And what I found, to your point about this piece around skin in the game, is when we're working hydraulic factory, and I did a few other jobs. I worked on service rigs. But it's always skin in the game. Like, I can't, every single tool I'm using, everything, every wing nut that I hammer, if I don't hammer that hard enough and there's 90,000 pounds of pressure coming through that and someone walks by that's the end of their life. Yeah. Or at least a mme, you know what I mean? Or a serious injury, which happens, from time to time. And it's all men, primarily 99.9% men out there. And so it's not like the healthiest or most conscious brotherhood, but it is brotherhood. And what forms that brotherhood and solidifies it so quickly is that every single moment on that job, that other people's lives depend on you. And everybody wants to go home at night. Everybody wants to see their family, or not at night. We'd go away for weeks. Everyone wants to go home eventually, and see their family, see their kids, live to see another day. And they're relying on you. And as men, unless you've gone through the military or something adjacent to that, I worked on a fishing boat for a little bit. That was very similar, right? Like, just you have to have each other's backs. There's heavy equipment flying around. You're on the ocean. All these different types of jobs, I didn't recognize at the time, but unconsciously I was putting myself in those situations purposely because I needed that experience, because it's just in my DNA. And I think some men are so far removed from that. I consider I'm pretty close to like on the savage side of the gentleman. Like I tend to lean towards the savage a little bit more. And I need that. Like and it's all about proof out there. It's all about proving yourselves. And eventually you build camaraderie and respect because men can rely on you and trust you that when Evan has the 20-pound sledge and he hammers that wing nut, it's good. I don't need to go and check his line. And when you start, they check all your shit because they don't trust you. And then eventually they get to this point where like, no, you're good, bro. Like I checked it. I could say, hey bro, like, to the foreman, I checked it. And he's like, okay, you're good.
And this is how we advance in a society, right? It's by this progression and development of ourselves. Then we create a level of efficiency where we don't have to go back and check on this guy. I just know, hey, if you tell me you're going to go out and you're going to bring back a deer, cool. You do that. I'm going to work on this. And I don't have to also, be looking around and paying attention just in case, right? I just know that.
And those guys that you do have to do that with, and they're the people you don't want around. You know what I mean? The guys that you're constantly having to hover around or half-ass things.
It's like, okay, you're a liability instead of an asset. And sometimes that it becomes, that's only because you have decided to do something that you're not actually suited for. You've just convinced yourself, hey, I'm going to be this guy. And it's like, bro, you're not that guy. Just get your ass out in the garden. And you're so good at
the other thing.
Like, no, I'm going to be a warrior. And it's like, you're terrible at this. It's okay. We still love you. Right. But we get in our minds that I have to be this thing, which is not who I inherently am. And I'll use business as the example. Like for the longest time, I have fought so hard since my fighting career to be like super, successful business guy, entrepreneur. And I'm fucking not that guy. I am not. And if I really went against my own character, could I become that? Maybe, but at what cost and to what end? And so instead it's like, well, man, I do have some gifts and there are some things that I am just inherently good at. Why don't I just focus on those and share that with the world instead of like trying to confine myself into this miserable box, right? Like in your circumstance where you're just like, I'm going to do some mindless, thankless job that gives me no sense of purpose, because the world says, hey, you got to have a good paying job and you need health insurance and 401ks, right? And so you're just like, oh, sure. And you do this and, at a certain point, you don't live who you were created to be. It gets really dark really fast. And we wonder why guys are in such a bad state. And it's like, well, maybe you're pursuing the wrong things. Maybe you have followed an incorrect path for you. And so I think it's important that we do need to vet guys, but we also need to be a part of that process is like, it takes an outside perspective sometimes to say like, hey man, you're so good at this. Why aren't you doing this? And you're like, oh totally. Man, I don't know. I just, and you're like, why are you fucking around over here? You're amazing. And then all of a sudden we're like, it just takes that little nudge, right, from someone that we trust, who we built that rapport with. And this is why men need community because, man, if we're just wandering around, who knows what kind of goofy shit we're going to get into,
and
right?
Part of that is we kind of are sold this idea, and to some degree, of course, it's an amazing idea that like you can do anything with your life. It's like, yeah, you couldn't do anything. You can't do everything. And there's some things that you're more suited to than not. Like if we were to go back a couple thousand years, like you obviously would be in the warrior caste. Like you would been like you have a warrior mentality about you. You literally, you know what I mean? Like people were placed into these roles, which is limiting in some ways, but also you're born into a job that like you're built to do. And if you're not, then you would be a merchant or you would be
what do you think the depression and suicide rates were in the 1600s, 1700s?
Imagine it would have been really low. What do you think?
I think it's incredibly low. I mean, if we look at the statistic, I mean, and you can go back in history and there's, documented things of melancholy, right? And I'm sure even in Greek times, there were people, I'm sure there was suicide then and that sort of thing, but I don't think it was quite as prevalent as it is today. And I think part of that is from a lack of purpose and just what you said, where it's like, we're doing stuff that means fuck all, right? Like men are designed with a purpose. And if they don't feel like they're fulfilling that purpose, it's going to have consequences. It's going to negatively affect them, right? And so we're working these bullshit corporate jobs for bullshit corporations that mean nothing. They have no soul. And then we wonder why we feel unfulfilled. And you have to ask yourself, well, what are you doing? And so for some people, man, being able to get into a spreadsheet and make the numbers work and do that, like, they love that. Right. I mean, it just the ability to do that and find these details and it's their art form. Right. And yes, that job is for you. Do that, and if you put that guy and put a hammer in his hand, he would hate it. He would fall to pieces and would be miserable. Right. But conversely, if you take the guy who needs a hammer in his hand and sit him in that office, man, it's going to be a problem. And so I think we have just accepted that whatever society tells us, whatever path is in vogue, that's what we follow, as opposed to doing the hard work of introspection and figuring, okay, who am I at my core? What am I good at? What calls to me? What am I passionate about? And how does that relate to my God-given abilities? And what can I do with that? And I don't think we're teaching kids or anyone to ask those questions.
I also think that what happens and leads to a lot of that suicidal ideation or depression or all the kind of stuff that, in particular, it seems like men are facing is there's like a stepping over of their own soul's integrity, if you know what that means. Like for me, like, I couldn't do a job like that because it was so out of integrity for myself of who I am that I couldn't tolerate that. Like I just couldn't. And some people, they've built what I'm making up, at least, or what I see is like, well, they know that it's not in integrity, but then they build all these things in their life to kind of numb it out. They build a lifestyle so they don't really have to be with that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you sit with it long enough and you're just like, what the fuck? Like that's what in my opinion, that's what a midlife crisis is like eventually you just hit this point where like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? What have I been doing for the last 20 years? And you just do something radical to shift everything, which isn't always the best solution, but you just feel like I have to take some sort of action.
But it is intentional.
Totally.
And I think that's what's lacking. Is for me, again, I have found a lot of freedom and just peace in doing things intentionally and understanding why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, for good or for bad. I mean, it doesn't mean that everything I do is smart or good, but I am doing it with intention. And then I have to analyze based off of the net result where those intentions were coming from and should I follow them in the future, right? But I don't think we have the curiosity to like ask those questions of ourselves. And the whole workout that we did was really, I was just curious. I have this idea about how men interact and work. I have a hypothesis. Let's test it. It is the scientific method of fuck around and find out. So we fucked around and then we found out.
You strike me as the kind of person that leads your life from that place, even from like, not many people get into something like professional MMA fighting, you know what I mean? And then go to like start a clothing company. Like you strike me as someone, and correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of just follows their interests without being totally calculated about how this is going to contribute to my retirement fund and da. You're like, no, I'm following my curiosity. And for sure that has its shadow aspect or the hard part of that.
Yeah.
But there's also a level of integrity that you're like, hey, I'm really interested in this thing and I'm going to pursue that, even though it might be a total bifurcation from what I was doing before. Like from someone to go from like fighting to creating a brand like you have, you know what I mean? And creating clothing. That's a pretty interesting departure, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, and this is why when you said, oh, I've been following you for a while, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't recommend anybody follow me. Like do not, because I don't know where the fuck I'm going.
But that's it though.
Yeah. I for better or for worse, I have found a lot more success in my life and certainly happiness in it, in contentment, in, I don't know, almost, this is going to sound ridiculous, but almost taking like a very like wizardly approach of, you know, almost mystical, like the line from Lord of the Rings always stands out where it's like a wizard is neither early or late. He arrives precisely when he means to. And where it's like, man, to think that I can plan out everything in my life in the world, I think that's going to happen is a fool's errand. So I allow an openness to move with whatever leads me and however I'm led. And for sure, if you're trying to follow behind me, you're going to be like, what the fuck are we doing? Where are we going? This is where I don't want to like lead anyone. I'm happy to guide, right? You can watch me from a distance and be like, ooh, you know, through, you know, squinted eyes while I fuck things up or do something really awesome. Who knows? But I, when I stop assigning, some kind of a judgment to the thing and I just let it happen, it becomes, I think, a lot more useful because I can take that and just learn and then apply that somewhere else. And so that's really has just been the process of, you know, an understanding of like, hey, if I challenge myself in some way, that's been really my only guidance of like, is this hard? Does it make me super uncomfortable? Okay, there's probably something useful in that. Let's lean into it. You know, that really has been my only thing. And obviously there is some level of enjoyment to it, but it's this weird tension of like love and hate. Like fighting was I loved everything about it and I absolutely hated it at the same time. You know what I mean? Like there was so much of it where it's like why would I ever do anything else? And then there was like, why would I ever do this to myself? And it taught me so much, you know, and I'm super grateful for all those really hard lessons that I had to learn the hard way. And every step of my life has kind of been that way from starting the business and going down that route. Like, again, I am not inherently business savvy.
Well, but I would say that like, if anything, that's actually a pretty, what I've learned and people have heard this before is like leadership to me is inherently the ability to step into the unknown, because when you lead from the front, you are the one that is like stepping into the fuck. Like, I don't know, but I'm, you know, think of a guy at the front of a whole platoon or whatever like that, charging, you know, forward to the lines. He has no idea what he's running into really, but he's the one that's willing to lead from the front, knowing that like, okay, I'm going to take the step into the unknown. And you might not see yourself from being your own being and knowing what you don't know and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But people watching that, like, wow, that's a guy that's willing to take risks. He's willing to step in a cage and take a pretty massive risk. He's willing to you know, strike out on a business that he has really from my understanding, you didn't really have any experience in doing that kind of stuff. And I don't even know what else kind of projects you've been up to, you know what I mean? But that tenacity, I think, is really what's missing from a lot of people that can be really inspiring. I resonate with that myself. I've always been someone that if I have even just a peak curiosity in it, I'll just go for it. Like, why not? Like, this is my life. I'm here to experiment. I want to try things. And I have a real deep desire to learn. I don't care about looking stupid for the most part sometimes, but you know, for the most part, like I'll look like a fucking idiot because I get to try things. I don't take myself so seriously. And that alone, I feel, is missing from so many guys. I get around so many dudes and I'm like, well, what do you really want to do? Like, what do you really want to do with your life? Like, that's a question I'm always asking guys that I work with. And then they dig and dig and dig and eventually get to this place. And I'm like, well, what's stopping you? What's stopping you? Like, not like, you don't have to quit your job and move to it, but like, what's stopping you from making the next step towards that? And then it's always comes up around the fear and then what we were talking about before, the cultural and societal kind of dampening of like stepping out of the 401k or stepping out of your history. Oh, but I got a master's. It took me 7 years. And now if I change direction of the ship.
Well, it's a sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah, you're fucked either way though. What you're going to, like, you think you're going to change your life in 10 years or you're going to change it now? It's going to hurt a lot more in 10 years when you've invested this much more time into it.
And I don't care, how successful your law practice is. If you fucking kill yourself because you're miserable.
Yeah. Who cares?
That's not that's not success. Right. And so we have really like constrained our collective notion of success to only translate to dollars and cents. Right. And for me, letting go of that has been really helpful because it's like, I'm joking saying where I'm not really joking, but it sounds like I'm joking where it says I have no business running a business because I'm not really good at business and I'm not great at making money. Like that's not my strength. Mm-hmm. Like, thank God my wife is super awesome at that. And it just comes to her naturally. That's not my gift. And if I try to force that, and it's not to say that like I won't work and I can't make money, but if like that becomes my main focus, I'm going to be miserable and it's going to bleed into everything else and make it way less effective. And it's a conversation that she and I have had quite a few times when I start to get a little bit off the mark and everything in our life starts falling apart because I'm focusing so much on the business and so much on, zeros and ones. And you could feel it. Like you can feel it with our kids. You can feel it here in the space. I mean, it has a profound effect. And so I've learned to become sensitive to that. And I think that's really important. And I think what you're talking about, this idea of stepping out for guys and the fear, I think truthfully that stems from, and I think almost every problem that we have in a society, and particularly as men, it comes down to a self-worth issue. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you see this in the work that 100%. You do, right? Where, well, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid of failing. Why are you afraid of failing? Well, that will reflect negative. It will mean I am a failure. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm not as valuable, right? And is the thought logic,
the narrative,
right?
Yeah.
That's the narrative that we end up telling ourselves, and society kind of reinforces that,
of course,
because all we give a shit about are the winners. The only people we applaud, the most highly respected individuals in our society today, are the winners, right? And you can.
And it's judged by net worth oftentimes too. Yeah, like, but he's a billionaire.
The only people we care about, the people who are at the peak of our civilization right now, not truly, but in the public perception, are our athletes, professional athletes, and our top business moguls, right? And from the metric of winning competitions and from the metrics from accumulating currency, money, they are at the top. But if you were to peel back and look at any other metric in their life, right? Man, they are not winning at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I use this example quite a bit, and maybe there's a better one, and I don't have anything against the guy. It just is the one that comes to mind because he's so good at what he did. But like Michael Jordan, I think is a great example where it's like, fuck, there's nobody who did it better. But how many points in that guy's life is he truly happy?
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods is a great example.
Yeah.
I mean, the list can go on and on. And I mean, there are successful athletes out there who are winning, but it has nothing to do with their sport competition. It has everything to do with what's inside them and how they actually interact in the world outside of the game that they play.
They happen to excel at a very particular game that happens to be lauded in society. That it's just like those two intersections. It's like, you might be, like you said,
it's correlation though. It's not causation.
Exactly. It's just correlation.
And
exactly.
We say, oh, well, he's successful because A, he's really good at playing this game.
Yeah.
And B, he has millions of dollars. And it's like, no, actually, he's a super fucking good dude. And he knows himself intimately and he can express that and share love with other humans. And everything else is just cursory to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the worst part about that is, or at least the most distorted part of that is because that's the game that we lift and celebrate. That's the game that everybody assumes that they need to play, especially men. You know what I mean? Like you look at guys like, it's so easy to talk about like Andrew Tate or, even Jordan Peterson, man. Like he's just like, he's got a lot of good fundamental values and stuff like that. But it's like all these guys that kind of want a dad to tell them what to do. And Tate's kind of like the older cool brother. And it's like, oh yeah, but like if you make a ton of money and you have a ton of women and like you have the 12 sports cars, like now that is the pinnacle of success. And the only reason that something like that gets so popular is because nobody else has anything to grasp onto. Like nobody wants to grasp onto like the fundamental rightness or goodness or wholesome values.
You can't quantify it. You can't quantify.
Yeah, like being a good father. Like that's got like there are people that think that, but that's not like a big celebrated thing in the world. It's not like that's the pinnacle of success. Like, oh, you know why Michael Jordan's such a good dude? Because he's just such a good dad and he spends time with his kids and he treats them so well and he gives them opportunities. Fuck the basketball. Like, no, like you never hear that conversation.
No, you super don't. And to me, that's not winning, right? If I don't care how many fights, I could win every fight ever. I could be undefeated world champion in 3 weight classes, right? The best MMA fighter on the planet. To me, that means fuck all if I don't have a relationship with my wife and my kids. And so this is going to sound counterintuitive, but bear with me. All right. That to me is peak success. And that sounds very domesticated to other people, but I would argue that chasing this corporate dream is the domestication. And the only reason I can operate in a space where the only thing that matters is the wellness of my wife and my kids is because I'm so far in the other direction. And I don't know what's the feral, I guess, was the opposite of domestic. I'm so confident in my feral abilities that I don't give a fuck. I don't need any of this shit. If I had to, I'd take that bow and arrow and I'd go out in the woods and I'd shoot squirrels. And honestly, we might live a better life than in the house.
Oh, 1,000%.
You know what I mean? So there's literally nothing that could happen that could be taken away from me as long as I have that ability to be with them. And so the domestication comes when I'm reliant on this, this paycheck and this retirement and, being able to pay this mortgage and this car payment and having this boat.
Get to the grocery store and buy my meat because I don't know how to procure anything or grow my own food. Or there's a whole I don't know if you've ever seen some of these memes that are around now. It's like the resistance in the 70s or whatever is like dudes with big mohawks and like these punks. And it's like the resistance now. And it's just like a guy with his family, like clean cut, like
having a little homestead.
Exactly. Have a few chickens because that really is the truth. I mean, we came very quickly because at the turn of the century in the 1900s, that was the norm, and getting back to that piece around community. Even I farmed for a few years and your community of people around you, your neighbors, even if you're all on 40 acres or whatever, they come. And I remember we had a mechanic that lived down the road and he would come and help repair the tractors when we needed stuff done. And we had a vet that lived down and they would help with the animals. And like, that was like the bond in the community that we had built. And we are growing food. We didn't have to leave the farm for weeks. We didn't need anything. What do we need? Like, we don't need anything. And if we needed it, we could trade with our neighbors. We had that kind of our own, it was like our own society, really, our own little pocket of culture,
ecology,
our own ecosystem for sure. And everything that we needed, skills, supplies, everything like that. I mean, was all supplied in that. And that's really how people live for so long. And this idea of working your whole life to buy back your freedom is indebted slavery. And I think that people don't realize that like doesn't matter how much money you're making. It doesn't, none of that matters. You're actually just trying to buy back the most valuable thing that you can never get back, which is your time and your health.
Yeah.
Right. And like, you can't trading money for that is literally, if you sat and just thought about it and really looked at it, it's one of the stupidest, shittiest investments you can make. Like it's the worst payout to give all of your best and healthiest years of your life. So you can maybe, if you make it someday, be free, so you have more money than you can spend in your life because the value of money declines because you can't do anything with it when you're older. You know what I mean? Like, what? It's so absurd.
It's a terrible proposition. It's a very losing proposition. And I mean, slavery isn't inaccurate. I almost look at it more as like serfdom.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a better way of putting it.
Where it's like, yeah, you can choose to do some stuff, but motherfucker, you better, if you want to have a place to live, you better go out and do the thing that the landowner tells you to do, or you're going to be in serious trouble, and you are beholden to that. And I don't think that that's the way that we were designed and created. I mean, yes, we have to do things to survive, but, and I think when we are doing those things to survive, we feel very fulfilled. This is the consequence part, right? And the purpose, where it's like, man, you felt so much better when you were doing these hard jobs when other people were dependent on you because you had skin in the game and it mattered, right? We have evolved our society so rapidly that, like, I mean, no one really has to worry about, like, survival is not anything that anybody really thinks of. In real survival terms, like,
no, I have to go out and like pay money to go get my ass kicked. You have to
try really hard to die of dehydration.
Totally.
You know what I mean? You would have to refuse to like drink water because you can go almost anywhere in the country and get clean water to drink. That has not been the case for, the vast majority of human existence. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, man, we have become so incredibly comfortable, and we have traded real survival and real skin in the game for trinkets and baubles and shiny things that we have been told, oh, well, you gotta have a house to live in. Do I? Fuck you. I've got 2 shelters that I built out there. Like, if I had to, you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not saying that is my plan, but knowing that I could, if I needed to, really alleviates a lot of the anxiety of like, well, fuck, what happens? Mm-hmm. And really all that does is it gives me the ability, not that is my game plan, but this understanding of self-reliance and by extension, self-worth, that I know that I'm capable, right? Well, how do I determine my worth? Well, I can do shit, and that has value. I know it has value, right? Yep. And so I believe it. I don't have to convince myself. I don't have to trick myself. I don't have to buy, $100,000 Tesla to tell me, oh yeah, I'm good at things and I'm successful, right? Because I know I could chop down a tree and I can cut that bitch up into wood and I can start a fire and I could be warm.
I think that also puts kind of momentum on your tenacity to continue to try and do new things. Do you know what I mean? Like, as you continue to build capabilities in all these different areas and trying different things, and your willingness to just be like, yeah, I'm going to figure out how to build a shelter, or figure out how to start a friction fire, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be survival skills necessarily. It could be anything. Then you're like more inclined to continue to try new things. And that kind of, it's this like feedback system, which builds that confidence to be okay with like the best times in my life are the times have nothing to do with money or spending money or being in a corporate society. It's like always, like, for me personally, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, maybe it is the guy for the spreadsheet, but for me, it's always like making memories with people I love and being in the natural world. And I believe, and it makes sense, it checks out for me that, as we've spent quite a long time doing those two things more than we've done anything else.
Right.
So it's just kind of embedded and installed in our way of being, in our DNA, that's kind of like what we're supposed to be doing. And all of this is a racket and it's like a game. And I'm not like we were saying before, like, I'm not some Luddite and saying like, oh, like, screw society and I don't need any of this. It's really convenient to drive to the grocery store and get what I need and to have clean drinking water and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that, and I've talked about this before, we don't even get the opportunity as men, or really in societally, to experience the real profound, wholesome nature of like the simplicity of those kind of things of life,
Purity.
of living simply, the
It's
purity, like the purity that just comes with, like when you see your kids run through the grass, just having the time of their life. When did we lose disconnection with that? And we were talking earlier about, kids on their iPads and super techie and right in school, they're being 5, 6, 7 years old. And you immediately get pulled into that whole system. And it's like, there's that innocence that I've touched on again when I'm just out in the country, or out on a hike or working on the survival stuff or on that boss course, or I'm just like, oh yeah, like, it's all good.
This is how we're supposed to
it's all good. Like
Yeah.
I'm so happy. I'm watching a squirrel run around. I'm watching, you know what I mean? I'm watching the birds fly by. I'm listening to their calls. I'm like crafting something with a knife. I'm just like, man, there's nothing that I need right now. There's nothing that I need. And I think even if guys got a taste of that, you don't have to go on a month-long survival course. You don't have to do any of that. But just those moments of like no demand on your life. I don't need to be making money right now. I don't need to be strategizing. I don't need to be worrying about what other people are doing or my cars or doom scrolling social media. I'm just here in the present moment right now. So much of that burden, of that existential burden of like needing to perform or do something with your life and all the depression and anxiety of not being enough and all that kind of stuff you're talking about, of the self-worth stuff, kind of starts to dissolve a little bit.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the human animal that we are, however you want to believe we came into being, and whatever you want to believe reasons we are here on this temporal plane of existence, do you think the intention of that was for us to constantly exist in a state of anxiety and depression and just be fraught with worry and moving from one crisis to the next, to the next, to the next?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. That's the whole reason.
That's the whole plan, man. And then you die.
I mean, that makes sense. That checks out. Well, and okay, if that is the case, is there any other living creature that you can think of that exists in that state?
No.
Is a bird worried that one day it's going to wake up and there will be no worms in the ground? Fuck no. It just goes and does bird stuff. And if there's no worms over here, it flies a couple 100 yards and gets a worm out of the ground there. And it just goes about being this thing because it was created and designed to exist in this world. Like it was made for it. I think we have somehow become disillusioned as humans that we are not a part of this world. We are not connected to it in any way. And we somehow are a part of it or apart from it and don't belong in it. And it's like, no, man, I got these two hands that can do a lot of shit, and I can form and build and make things in a way that I can live and survive if I have the knowledge and skills. But the problem is we have removed or unlearned or forgotten those skills, and we've become dependent on someone else to provide all the things that we need. And so now we are in this existential crisis of like, oh shit, if I don't pay my power bill, I have no electricity and we're going to freeze to death. Right. And that's not a fun place to be. Like, so we can do one of two things. We can either go in one extreme and just make a fuck ton of money and rise above it, which, is one way. And I'm not condemning anyone who goes that route. Or we could go the opposite extreme and be content to have nothing and understand, like, I don't really need anything other than food, water, and shelter and love my family. That's it. But this idea that we can't exist without having all this stuff, I think is the most, painful idea that people have adopted, right? It is a source of so much suffering because we have to have, we've bought that lie. And when you recognize that what you have is already enough, because
sun comes up every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The sun comes up every single day. And you know what's really cool? Like sometimes it's cloudy and then the next day I might have something different and then there's a fucking rainbow and then, oh, look at that squirrel. And you know what I mean? And I can watch these things. And if I get super bored, I'll build a fire and I'll stare at that some bitch for a little while. And then I get a little bit hungry. So I'll go pick some berries, right? Yeah. It's like, this natural state, this more feral existence, I think we would really do well to be able to just keep that in mind and tap into that as needed. Again, don't throw out all the technology and the good, like, man, I really love the fact that we have modern medicine and like, you know, there's antibiotics if I get something super nasty, right? Like that's super cool. Man, thank goodness, right? And to some degree, thank goodness the sacrifices that humans made before us who gave up their sovereignty to work in a mass manufactured way that built and created the society and advanced it to the point that we're at right now. Like, man, I am super grateful that those motherfuckers had to work, 14 hours a day in a factory to build all the shit that we have. But I don't think that we have to continue that. And this idea of like, well, we just got to keep advancing. I mean, why stop there? We've got all these things. Let's keep going. And this is the bad incentives where we've fallen into this idea of like, well, more is always better, right? There's a term that they have for growth for the sake of growth. Yeah. Do you know what we call that in the world?
I can't remember.
It's called cancer.
Oh,
when something just grows because it can, uncontrolled,
it's a tumor.
It's a fucking tumor, right? And so, but if you look at business, what is the number one rule of business?
Of course,
if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yep.
And so we think that we just, okay, well, cool. I got a nice house, and we've got vehicles. Well, what else do we need? Let's get more stuff. Let's keep growing. Well, now I need a bigger house. Well, now I need a vacation house. I need. And then to satisfy that, I have to bargain. I have to make this shitty exchange of my time and my energy in order to get this thing that I have just been, I don't know, somehow convinced is the most
co-opted into. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think the antidote for like a guy listening or watching this who feels like that? Maybe he's caught in this like, fuck, I'm in over my head in terms of like, I have this huge life that I've built and I'm totally miserable in it, depressed, probably isolated too. That's a big thing that I notice with a lot of men is like, they also kind of are so busy between trying to manage everything that they've built in their life and work and make money. And if they have a family and they don't really have good men that they have that skin in the game with, that they've built that trust with, that they've really cultivated relationships. I think that's a big part of what contributes to a lot of the crises that we're seeing. Like, fuck, where would you start with someone like that?
I would start with telling them to breathe. And
I love that. No, that's perfect.
I mean, step one, right? And this is something that has, a good friend of mine has brought me back to quite a few times and brought me from some pretty sketchy situations. We've been on some pretty wild adventures, both with and without exogenous substances. and he's been such a good guide in helping me and bring me back to the idea of breath and not just breathing. Well, we do that all day, but I mean like actually feeling the breath. Like when I say breathe, I don't just mean inhale, exhale. I mean like the taking in this life force energy that every cell in your body needs to function, right? And creating that exchange from oxygen to CO2 and feeling what that does with your body, like feeling the air moving through your nostrils and your mouth and down your esophagus and into your lungs and expanding, and every like tiny detail minutia of breathing in and breathing out. That's where I would start. Recognizing that.
Yeah, I would say just to add to that, one of the things that I oftentimes tell people or teach people because I do a lot of work around the breath is think about the first thing that happens when you get in a stress state or like a response, like a flight response. First thing that goes is your breath. You tighten up, right? And then you go really shallow breathing, right? And so it's like you're kind of reverse engineering it oftentimes where if I can get my breath again, right? Even trying to shoot the bow, I was like trying to take some deep breaths, just like try to slow down my heart rate and slow down my mind, because I find that the deeper I breathe, the more I let the breath drop deeper into my body, the mind starts to slow down and I can think a little clearer. I don't have the anxiety or the stress response. So yeah, like I think that's such a great place that if men were really to pay attention to, just where is my breath right now in my body?
Yeah.
And am I even aware of it? Right.
And so when you find that awareness of your breath, then taking that a step further, understanding that you have and you are everything that you need right now in this moment. Like if you're breathing, you're here. That's it. Right? When you're not breathing, it's a problem. Right? And for someone who has made a career off of inadvertently not breathing from time to time, I can tell you how much you really appreciate that when it comes back to you after it's been taken away. And so the fact that you are alive and thinking and here in this moment means that you do have a purpose, and you were created for that purpose exactly as you are right now, with no strings attached, nothing extra. You don't have to become, you are. And when guys can understand that they are, then it frees them to open up to anything else that they could possibly become. And so understanding, and this is the hard part, right? Because on the surface, it sounds like I'm telling you two different things, where it's like, hey man, you're good enough. Don't do anything. And then I'm going to turn around and say, hey, you got to do more. But that's not what I'm saying right now. It's yes and, right? Understanding that, like, again, by virtue of still being alive, by having breath, being able to draw breath, it means you're winning. You did it. You're still here. Okay. And that means that you have some capability to do things. You're an expert at survival. You're undefeated. You're winning, right? Like survival is just the art of not dying.
Woke up another day.
If you're not dead, man, you
beat a lot of people out too. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. You're crushing it.
The fact that you even made it here, you know what I mean?
So when you have that, right, and you understand that, then it frees you to think, well, man, I've done so much with what I have, that I'm still here. What is the potential that I have? And it sparks this curiosity, not I've got to be better. I've got to be more. It's not this like, I don't know, masochistic David Goggins start mentality of let me see how hard I can break myself. It comes from a place of curiosity of like, man, well, what can I do with what I have here? And that when I recognize and I appreciate what I have and I like what I have, right. And extend that, like, I love what I have. I love who I am. Then I can start to accept and share that love with other people. And that bleeds into everything that we do, right? I mean, this may sound like a gross oversimplification.
I don't think it is at all. Yeah.
But really, if that becomes the foundation, at least for me, for whatever it's worth, everything else kind of falls into place. And it doesn't mean you don't have shitty days and you don't get frustrated, right? It doesn't mean that you won't need that reminder to come back to your breath and start that cycle again. But if you can repeat that process and create that as just like a built-in mantra, I think, I'm not saying it's going to solve all your problems. I wouldn't claim that to be the cure or the antidote, but I think it is, if nothing else, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think when you when you can't accept just the way that things are, because you kind of, in some regard, created everything that's happening in your life at some point. You might not have been totally conscious of it, and everybody gets dealt a different card and has different things they have to go through. And I really, honor that, of course. But at the end of the day, like, it's really hard to make a shift or a step in the right direction when you're feeling that tension of like it's hard to love yourself when you don't accept the way your life is. And it's hard to care about anybody else.
If you're unhappy, right?
And put intention into anything when you're just just can't be with what life is giving you. And I've struggled that even particularly in this last year, just you know, I'm moving down to the US and just going through all this kind of huge adjustment where I'm like fighting the experience that I'm having, the one that I chose. Like I chose all this, right? I'm just like, and then just, it took me months to just recognize like, wait a minute, what am I upset about? Like, what am I complaining about? What am I like? I'm breathing. I got that. My life's pretty life's pretty damn good. I get to record this cool podcast. I get to do all this stuff. And I was just got so caught up in focusing on the way that I didn't want it to be, in the way that I wasn't happy with some of this percentage of things that were happening in my life, where that stuff became so amplified because I was thinking about it all the time. Now I didn't want to be with it. Right. Instead of being like coming back to, oh, like, damn, dude, I've done a lot of shit. I'm here every day. Like I've had the successes I've had, and exactly what you're saying. I'm curious enough to like, where can I take things? Like, yes, of course I accept myself where I'm at, and wow, I could probably do so much more, so much better. And I can't remember where I heard this quote recently, but they're talking about like the markers of success for people. And one of them is like, you're humble enough to know that you don't know anything, yet you also think like you're good enough to do anything. Like those kind of two conflicting values tend to drive people to do incredible things in the world, because they're not so egotistical that they think they know it all, but they also do actually have a pretty firm belief in themselves. Right. And I think some of us innately, for whatever reason, come into the world with different varying levels of that. Part of mine was my father was really good at pushing me to just do stuff. Like there's this mantra he always told me. It was just like, don't say you can't, say you'll try. And like, he like, it's in me. Like I can't get that out of me. It's got installed in my nervous system. And I was just like, yeah, fuck you, Dad. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't understand it, but he's like, since I was like 4 years old, he's just been saying that. So just that tenacity to keep staying curious and be like, okay, I'll try something new. And then, like I said, and that kind of comes back to building that curiosity, that confidence that like, hey, there's more available to my life than whatever's happening right now. Just because this is happening doesn't mean this is the way that it has to stay and has to be. And I think so many men get stuck in that. Like, this is it.
I think we are, I mentioned this earlier before the workout. But I think we are creative by nature, right? I think that in the same way that whatever this whole thing was created somehow, again, however you want to believe that fell into sequence, whether it was, 6 days worth or,
6 billion years,
6 billion years, or however you want to.
Timeline don't matter.
Time's an illusion anyway. But in that same generative, creative model, I think we as humans mimic that, right? I think in the way that this existence is a masterpiece and an art form, we are that as well. We are both part of the painting and also the painter, right? When we have the ability to create, I'm not saying you can like move shit with your mind or whatever, but like, man, you can do a lot more to affect the environment around you. But that starts with affecting the environment within you, right? If you can't change yourself, you can't expect to change the world around you. It's a fool's errand. Like if you, the only thing I truly have control over is this, right? And if I'm incapable of affecting change here, how can I possibly expect to do that in a meaningful way outside of that? And going back to, you mentioned something, where it is sometimes hard for us as men to see the value that we have, right? Even if we have done some things that we can, put a feather in our cap and we can look back on, we still get into these positions where we believe this lie that it's not enough and we don't have it. And that's where the community component is really important, and this is why we're designed to exist in a community, because we need others to be the reflection so that we can truly see and know ourselves. I can't see and know the fullness of me without having the reflection of another human to bounce that back and inform me on that. And when guys don't have this, I don't give a shit what kind of Sigma male Kool-Aid you want to drink. Like, you're not John Wick. Stop. That's a movie, right? And there's a lot of dudes that are like super into that. They're like, I'm not an alpha, I'm a Sigma. And like, first of all, we don't even use the Greek alphabet for shit anymore. I don't know why. You can call yourself whatever, ancient letter you want to be. And we could start, shit, we'll get into the Futhark runes if we want to. Like, let's get weird. But it none of it matters. Like, it's really silly. And guys, kind of beat their chest with these ideas. And you know what happens to a lone wolf in the wild?
Don't last long.
It fucking dies, man. And so we're not meant to be in that state. Can we if you have to? Sure. Should we be proud of that? Is that the ideal? Absolutely not. And so being able to create and find a community and have that reflection and understanding that we need it, and we also need to show up and be able to reflect that, right? And I think this is something that men often miss when asking for help. And I talked about this with some of our guys who we have coming to our events. And the spoiler alert, the secret for anyone who comes out, the thing that you're going to walk away with, the lesson that I'm trying to help impart is that you are enough as you are, and you can, by virtue of the men who are surround you. And when you spend 3 days in the wilderness doing man stuff, you very quickly realize, you're like, oh yeah, no, you're right. It's not just me. I'm not blowing smoke. You can feel it. You're like, oh yeah, I am worthy because your presence here validates the fact, right? And vice versa, right? It's a very reciprocal thing. And so when we deny somebody that by not asking them for help, this is what I was saying. It was like, hey, I get it. You don't want to ask for help because you don't want to be a burden. But if you don't ask me for advice or help, I can't do the thing that I'm really good at. And you're doing me a disservice because now I'm just sitting here with a thumb up my ass doing nothing, right? When like, hey, I've got this thing. I'm pretty insightful. I can help guys. But they have to come, you have to ask. I can't just show up at your door. You have to invite me in. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, I know it feels like you're doing me a favor, but you're actually kind of fucking me, like stop. You know what I mean? So it helped me help you. And this is kind of to bring it all full circle. This is kind of the model of the exercise, the workout that we did, right? Where it's like, I'm helping you, which is actually in turn helping me by paying attention, having more more focus on what I'm doing by shooting this arrow so that you don't have to do more work, so that I don't have to do more work. And we actually make it through this thing, workout, life, analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just
together,
that brotherhood, you know what I mean? Just having brothers that, cause it's hard for men, I noticed that I ran a plant medicine retreat last year, which I was talking to you a little bit about. And, I was just like hammering into these guys, like, if you need help, ask for it. Cause I know what you guys are like. And these are pretty conscious dudes too. Yeah. And I was like, I know what you men are like. And it was all men. And I was like, you're not going to fucking ask for help and you're really going to need it. You know what I mean? And then you're going to be like all upset, or you're going to have this terrible experience, but all you needed to do was just say help. Like that's literally just get the word out of your mouth. Yep. If you're just even thinking about say it, just ask. Right. And I'm like, just use this as a place to practice the idea of asking for help in your life, because I was like that. I would rather, for many years, I would rather look like an idiot or fuck something up or take twice as long to do something or just be miserable when all I had to do was just ask someone for help. And the thing about help, when you ask for it, is like, it's one of the quickest ways to build a bond with someone. Asking for help, not even just helping someone, asking just for it. Action. The action of asking for help and letting someone help you actually has that person feel closer to you. They've done a bunch of studies on this, rather than feel burdened by helping you, which is such a mind fuck for so many people. You know what I mean? Because they're like, no, then I'm going to feel like a burden. Dude, I've done this, especially even ask my wife for help. Like sometimes I just refuse to ask her. And I'm like learning like, oh no, like what am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? And there's some part of me that just has that in me still that I feel like I have to do it alone.
It's a disservice, and you're crediting the other person because you're projecting your own fear and maybe the own way you
inadequacy
operate.
And all that.
Yeah. Where it's like they could say no if they don't want to do it. right? Like, you feel like you're responsible for their actions somehow. And, that's like, you're almost insulting their intelligence. You're like, no, listen, you told me to do something. If I can do it, I can do it. If I can't, I'm just like, sorry.
I'm a sovereign human being.
You have to trust the honesty and the integrity of that relationship, which again is kind of hard if you haven't established that. But I experienced that you gave me some flashbacks as you were talking about asking for help, sitting in a ceremony, same thing. It's like, hey, things could get really hard. If you're struggling, just raise your hand and let us know and we'll help you out. And so, it's going good, man. Everything's feeling great. And I don't know at what point, like if anything's particular triggered it, but all of a sudden I found myself just like, and then just like spinning, just the vroom. And it was, that's going to sound bad on your thing. And I would just circle the room and come back to myself and circle the room and come back to myself. And I couldn't get out of this loop. And it was so painful. And I was just like, I need, this has to stop. I can't handle this, to the point where I was like going to tap the floor. Like I was literally tapping out. And then of course the thought occurred to me is like, hey, dumbass, this doesn't work that way. I was like, and then I struggle with it. The internal struggle of like, oh man, I want to say help. But I don't want to mess anybody else. Mm-hmm. Everyone else is having their experience. I'm in a room full of people, music's playing, everyone's, in their space. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to be the guy that fucks it up and, ruins something for everyone else. And so I wrestle with it. And I don't know how long I suffered in this state. Finally, I leaned over to my buddy Sam and I was just like, hey man, I just need you to know that I'm having a hard time right now. And he's like, oh yeah, do you need to throw up? Do you need to go to the bathroom? I was like, no. I just needed to express that I'm struggling here. And he's like, I was like, I don't think I need you to do anything. I just needed to tell you that. And he's like, oh, right on, man. Cool. Immediately get let up, just gone, just vanished. And then it was the most beautiful, experience for the rest of that night. And it all came from my pride and fear and not wanting to be a burden. And again, that comes from the self-worth. When we recognize the inherent value that we as a human have by our existence, you almost, if you're true in that, you almost can't be a burden by being honest, right? If you're in tune with who you are and in tune with the relationship, you're not going to be a burden because that person won't let you be a burden because they'll just be honest and say, hey, yeah, I can't do that. Right. Or yes, absolutely. I'll help you. And they'll be glad to help in that. And I think that's part of the process that we need to work through is figuring out like, no, people do care about me. People care about you. They love you. They want you to succeed and they will do whatever they can to help you and will be grateful for the opportunity to do that. Give them the opportunity. Don't deprive them from that.
At least find out. You know what I mean? At least find out. You're the only one that's telling yourself that nobody cares about you. You know what I mean? That's your story.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. Yeah. No, I think that I always, anytime I do work with men in groups, I always get them to do some really awkward shit.
Yep.
I have them, look at each other. And sometimes these guys are total strangers and just look across from each other for a while. And then I'm just like, 30 seconds, whatever you see in this man that is just incredible or amazing or worth honoring, just blast them with whatever you see. And you don't have to fucking know this person, but if you look at someone in the eyes, you can just feel like, hey, I can just tell you're a good, and they're not bullshitting. I actually make them really feel like, don't bullshit this guy. Tell him like it is. Guys don't ever receive that. And it's super edgy for dudes. Just to look at a guy in the eyes for that long.
Sure.
And then to share something like from the heartfelt, just like you might not know this, but he's your brother, man. You guys are here for a reason together. You're on this planet together at this time. You came into each other's lives. Just recognize the goodness of the man across from you. Dudes fucking weep Like they just cry because they've never received that before.
For sure.
And the only times they've ever received, for most men, the only times they've ever received any type of positive feedback is after they made some sort of accomplishment, athletically, financially.
They won.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever it is, you know what I mean? And or there's a hook on it. Like, yeah, that was great. And this is what I need from you. And to just receive that for a moment, just like recognizing someone's humanity is so fucking powerful for dudes that it just like, it cracks their fucking heart open because like you said, it's really hard. We can believe in ourselves as much as possible, but there's not a man in the fucking planet that doesn't have that incessant voice that's just, it might be really quiet at this point in their lives. They might have done a lot of work around it, but it's just like, nah, like maybe don't believe it. You know what I mean? Whatever it is.
I don't think that's a bad thing. And some would point to that.
Yeah.
Some would point to that and say, well, that's your ego and it's a negative and it's bad and you got to kill it and you got to remove it. And it's like, if there was no egos, if no one had it, no one would do anything. No one would have the balls or the impetus to ever go out and do anything. No one would have looked at a buffalo and be like, you know what? I bet we could take down that motherfucker, and I bet he would be very tasty.
Yeah. Make some nice coats out of him.
With even these acorns and squirrels, I want some of that, right? The audacity to do that. You know, it was really important for our evolution and our survival, and I think we need to hang on to that. And I had a friend put it this way that I've really appreciated, where it's like, ego's not bad. You don't have to get rid of it. Just don't put it in the driver's seat. Maybe don't even have it ride shotgun. Just, back seat. So every once in a while, maybe you got to stuff them in the trunk, but don't kick them out the car because you're going to need that one day. And it's valuable. And I think, again, if we didn't have that desire to seek out some level of deeper understanding with ourselves via someone else, we would never work as a society. We would all just try and exist on our own, which means the species would die out because this is a relatively inefficient meat sack with which to navigate the world by yourself. Mm-hmm. Like we are a not herd, but we're
tribal.
Tribal. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're tribal species.
We're
right?
all about community.
Yeah. We have to have that. And so, what you're talking about with guys is a lack of intimacy. Right. What is really what it is.
100%.
And I don't think you can have that intimacy with someone else if you can't be intimate with yourself. If you don't intimately know who you are, it's going to be impossible to share that with someone else. And my thought is that, how can you love something if you don't know it? Right. And so how can you love yourself if you don't truly know yourself? And this is where it all kind of comes back to that breath and that understanding of and curiosity and that search for who we are is when we can find that, then we know who we are. We therefore love who we are, because you also can't, you can't, by virtue of knowing something, it is to love it, right? Anything that you have to love. If you take the time to get to know truly, intimately, you love it. Whether you want to admit it or not, you do.
You made the investment to know it.
Yeah. That is
clearly it piques your interest.
So you can't have one without the other. So that is really important. If we can develop that within ourselves, then we can then express that externally and live in the way I think that we were designed to. And it doesn't mean that every day is sunshine and rainbows, but I think it's a much better existence and far more fulfilling. Yeah, listen, this isn't the way to become a millionaire. Don't listen to anything I have to say if you guys.
This podcast isn't about becoming a millionaire.
No, I'm just saying, but some people are like, I am not making a lot of money by following this advice. This is terrible. Why would I follow this guy? And I told you in the very beginning, don't fucking do it. Do not, but because I'm not going to teach you how to make a shit ton of money. Like there's other guys for that. Go talk to Hermosi or
you're not, if you're listening to this and you came here to make money, I have some terrible news for you.
I'm not your guy.
You can go through every fucking podcast I record all the way out. And I can almost guarantee that you're not going to find that information on here because that's not, I haven't experienced that really leads, there's a threshold where some money is nice. And then beyond that, it really doesn't really fucking matter at all. And, you know, one thing that I really appreciate about you and was willing to make this journey to come down here is because you strike me as a man who thinks deeply about himself and his impact and his values and what he cares about in the world and what he wants to create and the intentionality and his creativity and his, you know, fucking the way that he wants to operate in the world is thought out. And it's also, you might be like, well, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but on another level, I think that is what makes it so compelling to, you know, to talk to you, is because you're humble enough to say, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm on this journey and I'm trying to squeeze, you know, the experience out of it and think deeply about myself and the impact and putting the things that matter most, like love and self-acceptance and awareness, and that transmission through who you are in the world, rather than what you've created or what you do or how much money your business makes, is the impact, in my opinion, that ripples out into serving people deeply, And that's what I try to aspire to as well. I am not here to make as much money as possible and to own as much stuff or to even have notoriety and fame or anything like that. I hope that when someone interacts with me, I leave them better than I found them. And that's about it. You know what I mean? That's about it. And that's the same thing for like my little plot in the world. I hope that instead of spraying my yard with glyphosate, maybe I could leave it with some wildflowers. Yeah. You know, I hope that, and that's a practice. That I'm not always good at that. Fucking traffic, dude. Like, I'm not the nicest guy. I'm not a maniac, but I'm certainly not like, I don't leave everything better than I found it. And so cool, that's a place to practice. How can I be even more honoring in this moment, right? Because that also, it all, like you said, it's all a reflection of our inner world. All it is. We're just creating that. I was listening to a friend of mine talk last night, and he was like talking about how, you know, you go to France and you have this assumption that everybody in France is kind of this, they don't want you to speak English and they only speak French to you, and they're kind of short, sarcastic assholes. It's like, cool. That's the experience you're going to have if you go into that country, and that's what you're going to have. Right. And if I go there and I'm like, you know what, everybody here is amazing and is awesome. And yeah, there might be a few assholes around, but the context that I see the world through, the lens that I see the world through, I create, right? I create that.
Perception is reality.
It is absolutely. It's like you said. And so like just notice, this is what I've had to do, is like notice how I'm perceiving myself is just going to be reflected in the world. It's just going to be reflected in the world. So that's why I have guys do these kind of practices. And similar to what you're saying is like, well, how can I practice honoring life, honoring honoring creation, honoring all of that? Because that actually gives me back so much more than I can't buy that. Yeah. I can't work towards that in like at a capacity out there. I can only work with that within my own heart, within my own soul, you know, and reconcile that with myself of like, oh, to your point, we're all creators here. We are the artist and the art. Well, everything is art. Like, we're literally painting our way through life. And so I could paint demons and dark, the terrible spinning rooms, like you're saying, you know what I mean? Or I can say, hey, you know what? I don't really like this picture that I'm painting, bro. You're a pretty good painter. Like, you want to come help me paint something better right now?
Look at this and see, like, why is this off? And like, oh yeah, your perspective is wrong. And well, and I think the way to get there is going to sound very cliche, so forgive me, but it is through gratitude, right? Being grateful for being created, right? The fact, again, regardless of how you want to, whatever conclusion you want to draw of how we got here, we're here, we came from somewhere. And man, I am glad to be here rather than not here. So I appreciate that. And so when I look at that creative force, whatever we want to assign that to, I call that God. You may have a different, thought, and that's fine. But the way I show that gratitude is by mimicking and creating in a similar fashion to the best of my ability. What better way to honor whatever has given me this existence, right? A buddy of mine we had a pretty deep conversation, and he used a star as an analogy, right? We were looking up at the stars as you sometimes do when you're when you're out in the woods and under the influence of certain things. And so we're having a very deep conversation of the nature of things and why we're here in existence. And, you know, he made the analogy of just being so grateful for the beauty that we're seeing is like, man, how could I ever repay the stars for what they can give? How could I ever repay the sun, which is a star, for the life that exists on this planet, right? It's like, well, I mirror that. I want to burn so hot and so brightly and so intensely that everything around me benefits and is given life, right? And that is what a star does, right? So whatever you want to, we wouldn't be here on this planet without the sun. I'm not saying you worship a sun god or whatever necessarily, or do if you want to, I don't care. But modeling everything that is built is, just again, in my mind, a reflection of where it came from, right? And so we as humans should reflect. The sun was created by something, so it reflects, right? So we can just keep running that up the ladder till eventually we come to some conclusion, whatever that may be. So I just mirror that in the best way that I can. I use that model and I try to radiate as much energy, love, out into the world that it projects and it is life-giving as far out as I can. I know I'm not a star. I know I'm not like having, nuclear reactions going on inside me. So, there's only so much I can put out, but to the best as I can while I'm wearing this meat suit, man, I am going to send it as hard and as far as I can. Because I feel like I owe that to whatever put me here.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful way of putting it into perspective. Like, wow, how could you, and in some sense, like you could never really repay the significance, the miracle of creation. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness, like what a wild existence that we have. We could get lost in looking at some particular plant and be like, how did this even come to be? I'm curious, like, where are you these days where are you pouring your energy into mostly? Like, what's life look like right now?
Clearly these gains, bro.
Well, obviously, kettlebell swings.
Yeah, kettlebell swings. I'm really big into my fitness.
Oh yeah.
No, not at all. I only do it when there's a camera so I can, get
looks
Instagram
really
followers.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it's about. Mostly just my main focus is the stability. My job right now is to provide. Right. But what I've realized is I can provide so much more beyond monetary value by providing order and stability to my wife and my kids and my family. And so that's kind of at the forefront of everything that supersedes all else. And then beyond that, it's really just exploring like, well, what can I do? I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And I see a lot of guys who could maybe benefit from some of that. How can I help share? How can I help them? Again, because it ultimately helps me, right? It gives me that reflection that I need to continue to like perpetually create that energy out in the world. I say I'm not a nuclear reactor, but there is a fission there that is taking place where it's like, man, I give you energy, you give me energy, and we're just turning hydrogen into helium, man. And so I think that trying to find ways of doing that in the world, helping other men and sharing whatever little nuggets of wisdom, if they're willing to listen to me ramble long enough. Some of you guys probably aren't, and I don't blame you.
Those people are long gone.
But they're not watching anymore. God bless everyone who's still with us at this point. My goodness, it's been a journey. But just trying to find ways to share that. And so, I've kind of leveraged the e-com business that we have, making apparel and leather goods and that sort of thing as a catalyst to attract you guys to this idea of being a savage and a gentleman, and that we don't have to be one or the other. We can be both. And then, parlaying that into a Facebook group that we have called the League of Savage Gentlemen, and extending that to just beyond just a digital realm to now doing real life experiences and events. We've got one, I think, the same weekend as your.
What does that look like? Your event?
So we keep it. It's a pretty small exclusive thing. It really is centered around the idea of body, mind, spirit that I experienced for myself when I was on the survival TV show, where it's like, we're out in the woods, we're out in British Columbia, eating dirt and snails and stuff and freezing our ass off in the October rain, which you can appreciate how miserable British Columbia is.
It can get real cold, man. Yeah, that rain is not. It's not a warm rain.
I wish it was colder, and we could have had snow because it would have been less miserable.
Oh yeah,
I digress.
Everything's wet.
While I was out there, it was a 3-week challenge that we did on Discovery Channel, and at a certain point, your body is just done. And it, lack of food, lack of sleep, all of this thing, your body just kind of gives up. And so the only thing that keeps you going at that point is your mind and your mental fortitude. Right. And after a while, that fades away too. And eventually what you're left with is your spirit. Right. And the only thing that is now driving you is that spirit. And it allows you to connect in a way that I think the world that we live in often deprives us from. So sometimes we have to remove all of the pleasantries, right? All of the domesticated things that we have to get to the source, which is spirit, and have some of these conversations and learn some things about ourselves. And so that kind of became the thesis for the events, where it's a 3-day course where we go out, and the first day is heavily centered around body. And then we transition into mind. And then on the third day, we tap into some spirit, and really, we do different things. You kind of got a little taste of some of the stuff the idea here. Really, they're all just a mechanism to drive conversation. Like, that workout didn't mean anything other than it gave us a basis to talk. Yeah. Right. And so again, men can't just sit around and talk about stuff and have it be productive. There has to be a shared blood, sweat, and tears, some kind of common goal, common struggle, that I know who you are. I can see what you're capable of. And now I can have an accurate understanding of how far I can trust you and how far you can trust me. And that mutual understanding allows us to have some really good conversations. And that's really the crux of it. At the end of the day, like, we're spending time together. We're doing some hard shit together. We're learning, we're growing. There's the main focus is camaraderie, clarity, and capability, right? So you're going to have some camaraderie. You're going to hopefully get some clarity about what's going on in your life and some ideas on how to work through it. And you're going to be more capable than you were when you came. And it's beautiful, kind of the nutshell in it.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Just from one dude to another who's just trying to inspire and help and serve men, just for your work in the world, for that calling that you have to do that. I think it's so needed and so important. This has been a wild conversation, you know what I mean? Kind of all over the place. I guess for anyone listening to this or watching, like, where can people find out more about you? Maybe if they want to be a part of that, retreat or anything that you offer in the future. Just
yeah. So
your terrible Instagram account, obviously.
Yeah. Savage Gentleman is the business. So savagegentleman.com.
Yeah.
And the League of Savage Gentlemen is the Facebook group. My personal Instagram is at Josh Tyler MMA, because I used to fist fight people.
Yeah, we didn't even get into like business or MMA or any of that kind of stuff.
Cares. That's so stupid.
You feel like you've talked about that to all.
I don't know. I mean, I only think that that's useful as a catalyst to get to the other stuff. It's a good jumping off point, but really, like, there's way more important shit than beating people up for sport and money. So Josh Tyler MMA or at Savage Gentleman Official are the best places to find it. And if guys are interested in coming to one of our Legion of Savage Gentlemen events, then I would recommend getting into the League Facebook group, joining that, getting in the conversation. I think we're at about 23,000 guys now in there.
Holy shit. That's huge.
It's a lot of dudes.
Oh,
it's a lot of dudes.
Wow. Good for you, man.
It's a pretty, like, as far as the internet goes, man, there's some really deep conversations there. You know, we do our best to kind of curate things to avoid the typical dumpster fires and just, you know, meme lured type bullshit that you can see everywhere. I'm not against memes, but like there's better ways to spend your time.
Oh yeah, totally.
So yeah, if you know, I would invite any of your listeners to join that, get in the conversation. And if you know, you want to come out and get weird in the woods and the outdoors and do some savage and some semi-gentleman type things, I would love to have you and
well, I'll be there for one of them, man, for sure.
Oh, dude, that'd be killer.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to come back. Yeah, anybody listening to this or watching this, definitely check out everything that Josh is doing. And thank you, brother. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for having me here, for kicking my ass with a workout beforehand. And yeah, just it's great to meet you, man.
Dude, thanks for showing up, man. Really appreciate the vote of confidence to come all the way out here and hang out with a stranger in their barn with sharp objects everywhere. Bold move, Cotton.
Yeah. All right, brother. Thanks so much. Yeah.